Welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into an absolute masterpiece, one of the most famous and widely read texts in the entire Islamic world, the 40 Hadith. If you're a beginner looking to grasp the core of Islamic teachings, or really anyone wanting to deepen their understanding, this is your ultimate starting point. But to truly appreciate this work, we first need to talk about the awe-inspiring guy who actually put it together, Imam an-Nawawi.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the masterpiece and the man, then look at a life of true devotion. After that, we'll see his process for assembling the 40 Hadith, break down the core principles of faith, and wrap up with a legacy that multiplied.
Part 1. The Masterpiece and the Man. So the text we're exploring is formally known as Al-Arba'in an-Nawawiyya, or the 40 Hadith. A hadith is essentially a recorded saying or action of the Prophet Muhammad. It's the practical bedrock of the faith. And the man who curated this famous collection, his dedication was just off the charts.
Imam an-Nawawi's actual name was Yahya, but he became known everywhere by this incredibly majestic title, Muhyi ad-Din, which means the reviver of the religion. Now, you don't just get handed a title like that for nothing, right? It was given to him by the scholars and the community because his impact was so massive that he literally breathed fresh life into the faith of millions.
But here's the part that absolutely blows my mind. Imam an-Nawawi passed away when he was only 45 years old. In our world today, that's barely middle age. Yet in that incredibly short window of time, he pumped out volumes of encyclopedic works and legal texts that are still the absolute gold standard in Islamic studies today, over 700 years later.
So how did he pull that off? Well, back when he started his studies in Damascus, he would sit for 11 different lessons every single day. And we aren't talking easy electives here. These covered heavy subjects like Islamic law, Arabic grammar, logic, and theology. He wrote down everything, literally zero wasted time.
And his stamina, completely legendary. For 20 solid years, he toiled day and night. No weekends off, no vacations. It's actually recorded that when he got too exhausted, he wouldn't even lie down in a bed. He'd just lean against his stack of books, doze off for a few minutes, and then wake right back up to keep going.
Which brings us to Section 2, a life of true devotion. You see, he wasn't just some academic machine. He was a deeply spiritual guy who completely detached himself from worldly luxuries. He never married and owned practically nothing except the books he studied. To put this into perspective, let's trace his timeline. He was born in 631 AH, that's the Islamic calendar, in a tiny village called Nawa. At 18, he moves to the intellectual hub of Damascus. A couple of years later, he performs the Hajj pilgrimage. And finally, after this explosive period of output, he passes away in his home village in 676. It's a really brief timeline, but one that completely altered history.
Now, Damascus at the time was a super wealthy city, famous for its lush orchards and sweet fruits. But an-Nawawi, he lived on simple bread and exactly one meal a day, eaten right before dawn. He actually flat out refused to eat any of those famous Damascus fruits. Why? Out of pure scrupulousness. He feared the ownership of those public orchards was doubtful, and he wouldn't consume a single thing unless he was 100% certain it was ethically sourced. That is some serious dedication.
But don't mistake his simple lifestyle for weakness. This guy was utterly fearless. He would regularly write letters directly calling out powerful rulers to act justly. Take King al-Zahir, a very powerful Mamluk ruler. An-Nawawi openly criticized him for imposing harsh taxes during a drought. The king was furious, but he couldn't bring himself to harm the scholar. In fact, the king actually admitted, "I fear him." Just imagine that. A powerful tyrant, backed by armies, genuinely feared a humble guy who owned nothing but books.
Okay, let's move to Section 3, assembling the 40 Hadith. Knowing how purely dedicated the compiler was, we can really appreciate why he put together this ultimate starting block for everyday Muslims. He didn't just throw together a list of his favorite quotes. He used incredibly strict criteria. First off, every hadith had to be absolutely authentic, no compromises there. Second, it had to convey a major principle of the deen, the Islamic way of life. And third, it had to be what scholars call a comprehensive pivot. Basically, these weren't minor details. These were the foundational pillars, the halves and thirds of the entire religion. Let's dive into Section 4, Core Principles of Faith, and look at a few short, powerful examples from the text that are perfect for beginners.
The very first hadith kicks off with this: the reward of deeds depends upon their intentions. He put this right at the beginning to establish a crucial point. Before you learn about prayer or charity or fasting, you have to fix your heart. Everything you do has to be sincerely for the sake of God. Because without a pure intention, even the grandest action is just totally empty.
Next up is this brilliantly simple statement: religion is sincere advice, or nasiha. So what does that mean? It means your faith relies on absolute goodwill, sincerity toward God, toward the leaders, and toward the common people around you. It perfectly captures that being religious isn't just about personal, isolated worship, it's about how deeply you care for the well-being of everyone in your community.
And then we have this essential one: cleanliness is half of faith. This is such a great practical daily guideline. On a physical level, yeah, it means hygiene, washing up before prayers, keeping your environment clean. But spiritually, it represents constantly scrubbing your heart clean of things like arrogance, jealousy, and greed. It's the total purification of both your body and your soul.
Finally, Section 5, a legacy that multiplied. And Nawawi's masterpiece didn't just survive on a dusty library shelf. It became a living, breathing foundation.
And it actually grew over time. Originally, Imam Nawawi compiled 42 hadiths. It's just called the 40 to keep the title catchy. But decades later, another brilliant scholar named Ibn Rajab saw the genius of it and added 8 more hadiths to round it out completely. Together, these 50 hadiths became an absolute core curriculum. Kids memorize them, adults study them, and the highest scholars still analyze them to this very day.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought. If a single guy living on one meal a day with nothing to his name but a stack of books could revive the core of a global faith in just 45 years, what impact will your intentions have today? Imam Nawawi is absolute proof that pure intention paired with relentless hard work can literally echo through eternity. So, take these foundational lessons, apply them to your own life, and see what you can build. Thanks for joining me on This Explainer, and keep learning.